And one of the things about his life, he bought this tower, Thor Valley, and he remade it, of course, and he made it one of his emblems in his poetry. So I'd like to give you this emblematic image of the tower, Thor Valley, as an architecture that he advances against modernity. What does he say about his Thor Valley? Blessed be this place, more blessed still this tower. A bloody, arrogant power rose out of the race, uttering, mastering it, rose like these walls from these storm-beaten cottages. In mockery I have set a powerful emblem up, and sing it rhyme upon rhyme in mockery of a time half dead at the top, which is a reference, of course, to the modern time. So he sees his emblematic tower, medieval, remember, this is part of his Gothic hankerings, as a way just to counter the modern rational epistemology. This is basically his idea. What does he say about Descartes? This is a quote from Descartes, just to give you, because I'm going to link this up with the body later on. This is what Descartes says, and this almost set the tone for the modern epistemology. What Descartes says after his very famous cognitive. What is it? Substance or something, there's something missing there. Of which I am a substance. Yeah, I am a substance, of which the whole essence or nature consists in thinking. And that this I, that is to say the mind by which I am what I am, is entirely distinct from the body. And even if the body were not, it would not cease to be all that it is. This is the split between the mind and the body that the Romantics propose so much in their poetry. Not only Romantics, those with romantic views of philosophy of the moon. It's very much like, as we said, the alter ego of modernity. Modernity, rationalism created its monster to a certain extent. Something that sees something quite radically different. Locke, this is a piece from Yates's book in which he replies to, in a very sarcastic way, to Locke and empiricism, the English empiricist school of philosophy. What does he say? This is taken from a poem entitled Fragments. What is it? Locke sank into a swoon. The garden died. God took the spinning jenny out of his side. Of course, it's full of sarcasm. This is reference to Eden. Of course, Adam and Eve, and how the modern age is rather more mechanical. It has engendered what we call the cyborg, which is a very important, feature of modern, life or modern science. It's the mad scientist. This is something that is very entrenched in modernity. It's the mad scientist was someone who hankers after, basically playing a god, playing God himself and creating. We'll talk about this later on, maybe just very superficially. These are the mad doctors. I brought you some examples of mad doctors. Some of them, of course, are real, and others are, fictional. The first one is Dr. Nikolai Pope. That's a real doctor, and he was celebrated by Rembrandt in a very famous painting by Rembrandt, The Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Pope. Was painted in 1632. I'll give you a picture later on. You'll see the picture because it's something related to the body and the perception of the body in the modern, the modern age. The other one is Luigi Galvani. That's a very famous name. I'm sure that you have perhaps some kind of an inkling what his name means. It's the bioelectronic magnetics of the soul. He was the one who theorized the idea that the soul is made of electricity. You know why? Because he did make dead frogs kick. He took a dead frog, put some electricity into it, 2 electrodes of color, and the frog started kicking. He said, well, now we deciphered the meaning or the essence of the soul. The soul is made of electricity. Galvani gave words like galvanize, and galvanization, galvanize. All these are references to the name of the doctor. A real doctor, Italian, by the way. You have to understand that. And there was another doctor, an Italian doctor, who started to do the cloning, and he made a big brouhaha about it. You remember that? So the Italians are quite adventurous when it comes to experimenting with mad science. Anyway, so Luigi Galvani, that's a real, but we have Dr. Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein, that's fictional, which is something, of course, related to Galvani. After Galvani's, of course, theory of the soul as something, that comes from electricity. Mary Shelley, she wrote, a very famous novel about this monster. Dr. Frankenstein, of course, the one who created this modern man. We wanted him to be a modern Prometheus, but of course he proved a complete failure. And to give him soul, what did he do? I am sure that you've read, those who have read, electricity, which is Galvani sort of thing. And Dr. Moreau, that's also another figure in fiction, the doctor who was hybridizing, humans and animals, and he's very famous, in a very famous novel by H.G. Wells, The Island of Dr. Moreau. It was published in 1898. So you see, that's basically the modern episteme, the modern epistemology, and the obsession with the body, and how to hybridize, how to create life, and how to see, how to exact it. All these notions or issues were associated with the body and life, of course. So this is the famous painting. Sure, maybe you come across this. That's the painting, which is an incredibly important one because it does really summarize the kind of obsession with the body that came with obsession and not obsession at the same time. Obsession, I have a teacher of mine, Francis Barker, who wrote something about this. He said, this is the dissection of the modern body as you see it in the painting. This is a perfect case where the body is subjected both, or doubly mortified. It's a dead body, but if you look at the faces of all these doctors who are supposed to be taking a lesson on anatomy, they are not looking at the body. They completely ignore the body. The subjection of the body, the obsession with the body without the obsession with the body to a certain extent. There is complete mortification of the body in the modern episteme. Right, aesthetic hybridity, that will be the last part of my talk today. I'd like to focus here on a poem, one of the latest poems by W.B. Yeats, The Circus Animal's Desertion. I'll give you just one strophe, one stanza, the last one, in which he talks about this hybrid way of conception of poetry and how to see the connection between the thingness of the poem and the essence of the poem, which is the thingness of aesthetic essence, as well as the work as flesh and soul, that hybrid sort of body. This is the last stanza, I said, of the poem. Those masterful images, because complete, grew in pure mind, but out of what began? This is the crux of the matter. A mound of refuge, or the sweepings of a street, old cattle, old bottles, and a broken can, old iron, old bones, old rags, that dream slut who keeps the till. Now that my lead is gone, I must lie down where all the leathers start, in the foul rag and bone shop of the heart. It's a very famous poem in which, of course, he sums up his entire career, and he seizes upon this poem in order to give us his perception of poetry as something that is made of this unity between refuse and essence, body, flesh, and essence, soul, etc. So that's another notion of hybridity I wanted to bring to your attention. Aesthetic unity rather than aesthetic purity. Aesthetics as transfigured refuse and cattle. Poetic unity of being as wholeness, plume. And I'd like to finish with this one because this is a very famous line as well. But basically she talks about this notion of complete unity between the two worlds. The world of the flesh and the essence of the art itself. He takes the example of dance in order to confirm his view of this plenum, of this wholeness. Oh, body sway to music, oh, brightening glance, how can you know the dancer from the dance? The body from the show itself of the dance. So I think this is something of a nice, perhaps, conclusion to my talk. Very briefly, these are the three main axes on which I tried to talk about today. Post-colonial hybridity as a third space. To sweeten Ireland's wrong, that's the colonial predicament or problem. as well as to consolidate a sense of nature based on unity of the body politic. That's the early age. The second one is historical hybridity as alternative to modernity's bisection of the human body, the split or dismemberment of the body into a thinking mind, but the mortification of the body. The body doesn't mean anything, I mean, in modern view of being itself. And the third one, the aesthetic hybridity as a dialectic between refuse and muse, flesh, soul, reality and ideality. So roughly speaking, this is very much like a conclusion to my talk. As I said, we'll have plenty of time. We'll have plenty of time just to expand on some of the ideas and maybe try to fill a bit of some of the gaps that have not covered in my time. So I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much indeed for your attention, and I'm waiting for your questions. Thank you.